out there in Banjo Land? Mike Heading here. Today I've got another little mini banjo lesson for you. This time we're going to be talking about up the neck Scruggs backup licks. I'm going to break down a bunch of the positions and a bunch of the fingerings you use with your left hand that's going to make finding these licks in your favorite recordings a lot easier. I'm not going to break down every lick note for note, but I'm going to show you a bunch of the positions and some of the styles and places again where you can start generating these licks. Alright, here we go. Alright, so let's examine some of those up the neck Scruggs positions. These are where we're going to get our licks from. And they're all based out of our chords, except sometimes we're going to use different fingers. So let's start up at our G chord at the 9th fret. So if you were vamping, you might kind of finger it this way, your normal way of a D position chord. But when we're playing licks, let's switch up to this position up here. So we're going to let our first finger take over at the 8th fret of the 2nd string, and we're going to put our third finger up on the 9th fret of the 1st string. So if you've played some up the neck songs, you know, Cumberland Gap or something, it's this kind of position. It's based out of this chord, except we're just going to finger it a little bit different to free our other fingers up to do some licks, okay? So that's our first shape we need to use, and I'm just going to play the top 2 strings, at least for now. So you could roll, you know, and you're going to use your pinky and second finger to do some moves eventually. But that's our first little spot. That's the one you got to get familiar with. And it's just, like I said, it's your D position G chord up at the 9th fret. Except we're just going to switch fingers. Okay, our next one's up at the 12th fret, and you may have done a bar chord before, but let's keep our third finger up on the 1st string, and we're going to use that as kind of our sliding finger. So we're going to slide up to the 12th fret, and we're going to let our second finger take over. So again, we're just playing the top 2 strings for now. You know, so when you're playing chords, sometimes you need more strings to kind of control the length of the notes. But when you're playing licks, you know, you don't want to go into a full bar chord necessarily because it locks your other fingers up from playing the licks. So sometimes just using 2 fingers on the top strings. See how I now have my other fingers free to move around? You know, so I can get all these other notes, whereas if I was in this bar chord, one, it's really hard to go backwards this way. I can't really do that at all, and I have less movement of my other fingers. So this is kind of an important point with these up the neck Scruggs licks. A lot of it is, at least in my opinion, is using the right fingers. That's going to take it from being, it's going to make it much easier. If you make up your own fingerings or you know, change them, it can make the licks a lot harder than they need to be. So first thing let's do is just practice sliding from that position to the 12th fret. So we're up at our G, and we're going to our other G. You can use the 5th string if you want to roll. You know, if you played Lonesome Road Blues or something like that. You know, that kind of song, you've probably done that little slide. That thing. It works good to slide. It's the same way you do it with your C down here. You know, all these licks are movable, remember, and we'll talk about that as well. So that's our first little thing. That's a good thing. I'm just doing a forward roll there. Okay, our next one is we're going to go up to the 17th fret and play our G up here. And this one I'm going to let my pinky take over up on the 17th fret of the 1st string. And I'm going to let my first finger take over on the 15th fret of the 2nd string. And I'm doing it this way because that's my high G up here, my F position G at the 17th fret. So if you played that chord before, again with vamping or something or rolling, I'm just going to play those top 2 notes now, so 2nd and 1st string. So you can practice adding that slide. One more time, here's that little exercise. You can move between the different positions, just practice. Remember, use the fingerings we were talking about. That's good practice, moving around, just, you know, moving back and forth between them. You can go up and down, practice sliding between them. Okay, so next thing we want to do is let's add some kind of basic, let me show you some of the basic licks. And I'm not going to break them down all completely. I'm just going to show you some of the basic positions. So there's a lot of variations on these licks, and I think it's better to get the positions down first, and then you can kind of listen to the individual variations, and they'll make more sense if you know the positions. Okay? So here, let me play the first lick that you can kind of work on. Okay, so we're going to start up here at the 12th fret for this lick, and the positions will come in handy, but we're going to have to modify them a little bit to play the lick. So you're going to sneak your first finger up to the 12th fret of the first string, and then you're going to use your and these are the fingerings I use. You can try them and see if they work for you. And then you're going to use your second finger on the 14th fret, and your pinky all the way up on the 17th fret. You're going to play those notes, 12, 14, and 17. Same with how you do it down here. You know, if you've played Cripple Creek or something like that, you might have used some of those positions and stuff like that. We're just doing it up the neck. Okay, so let's break down that lick. So we're going to start up here at the 12th fret, and we're going to play a bunch of notes on the first string. And this position is going to come in handy, but we're going to have to vary it just at the very beginning. So we're going to use our first finger all the way up at the 12th fret, our second finger up on the 14th fret, and then our pinky all the way up on the 17th fret. This is good practice stretching. Try and keep your first and second finger down while you're reaching up there. So let's practice just going up and down those notes. And I'm just using the middle finger of my right hand. They're all quarter notes, so. One more time. And then we're going to let our pinky take back over on the 14th fret. And we're going to go back into our position. So second finger on the 12th fret of the second string, and third finger on the 12th fret of the first string. And that's the position we're going to work out of. And here's a little lick you can do. You're going to have your pinky down on the 14th fret, and then you're going to do an 11-12 hammer on the second string with your first two fingers. There's a whole bunch of licks that work out of this little idea. And you can do it with your third finger too. There's two ways to do it. Or so either with my pinky on the first string or third finger. That's why it's important to use this position, because that's where you're going to get the licks from. And then we can slide back down. So that's where it's important again to use these correct positions. So that frees our first finger to get back down to the 8th fret. A whole bunch of licks that work out of that idea. So you can slide a little bit or hammer on. Another thing you can do is use the 5th string to get back down if you need to. Like that. So let's try it one more time. So we're going to walk up and down those notes on the first string. Then our pinky comes down on the 14th fret. We do that hammer on. A lot of times you'll hear it twice, but you can do it once too. And then you slide back down. Again, there's a whole bunch of variations on this lick. So again, think of it as positions. Doesn't matter, you know, if you want to learn the exact Scruggs lick, you know, you can listen to a lot of his old recordings, or there's plenty of people that have tabbed these out. But I'm just working and kind of thinking of the positions, and I think you'll be able to get those licks if you trust your ear. Okay. So one more time. There's a whole bunch of ideas, again, like I said, that come out of this little hammer-on with different rolls, or, you know, you can play it faster. Something like that could work, or, like I said, the backup lick. Okay, so now let's try a different way. Instead of walking up there, another variation on this lick is we're going to slide up. So you might be coming out of a C chord or something like that. That's a really common one. Then you could go into a D or something like that. So what we're going to do there is, this is again where it's really important to use the positions. So let's start in our C chord at the 10th fret. Then I'm going to slide up with my third finger up to the 17th fret. And then I'm going to land my pinky up on the 17th fret of the first string. And this is a little secret that it took me a while to figure out. When you listen to it, you don't really hear this, but this is how I do it. So instead of just bouncing up there and hitting the first string, and it's kind of an offbeat timing. So what we want to do is we're going to bounce off the 4th string. So listen to it. I'll play it slowly. One more time. So that helps me play that offbeat timing because I'm going 1 and 2 and. So you can do it with the 5th string as well if you wanted to. And then you can go back into our position. So there's a bunch of ideas that come out of that. Sometimes I'll sneak down with my 1st finger if the song's really fast. Grab that note right there and then slide down. And that's how I get back into position. Then my pinky takes over on the 14th fret. And I'm back in my position. So it sounds something like this. Something like that. There's a whole bunch of, like I said, different timing. Think in terms of timing, So that'd be longer. You could do it shorter. Again, what I would do is try a bunch of different ways so you have kind of some contingency plans and some ways to get out of it. I like to have multiple ways to get out of the same lick. So if I ever play the wrong note by accident, I have still a way to recover. So that's a really good one to practice. You can do it out of different chords. You can do it out of a D chord as well. So you could. Another little cool thing you can do is grab the 15th fret on the 1st string. Same with, how you can do some bluesy notes down here. Like that. You can do that up at the 15th fret. So you could do. Or something like that. That's kind of the Foggy Mountain Special, something like that. There's the ending of Foggy Mountain Special that uses that little lick. Again, so just think of these as positions. So I'm using all my same fingers. And I get back down. Okay, so last thing, let's talk about, that'll give you some ideas on how to get between those licks, okay? So last thing let's talk about is how to move them. So here we go, let's try with a D chord now. And remember, these licks are movable, so it's really important to use your same fingers. So let's go into a G, and we're going to go up to the 12th fret. See how I did that? So I use the same fingers. Bit of a stretch, but you can do it. Then you're back down in here at your D. So you can do that same exercise with our D chord that we were doing with our G. You wouldn't be able to use the 5th string. You'd have to either retune the 5th string or just stay off the 5th string, but that's not a big deal. You also get licks like this. That's another really popular one where you're using that same position. Again, don't make it harder on yourself by learning each lick with the different fingers. Use the same fingers, so it's like, I've already used that, and you can expand on the knowledge that you've already learned. So, really important. Some people would do that with a bar chord, but again, it traps you from going backwards. So watch if I do it with these 2 fingers. I can grab other notes behind the ones that I want. So really important is don't trap yourself by using a bar chord. The bar chords are really good when you first learn because you get some value, and they're pretty easy to do, but they're pretty restrictive as well. I always tell students that is, I try and get out of the bar chords as quickly as possible, and use even if it's just 2 fingers on the top strings because it frees me up. That's another way you can do it, but try experimenting with different fingers, but again, I think if you use the right fingers, it'll free you up. So let's try with F one time. B flat. So what's nice about a lot of these licks is we're not using the 5th string really at all. So you can move them around to even weirder keys that you don't have to worry about the 5th string. So again, use the same fingerings. That'll make it easier on you. So you're not learning a new lick in each key. Okay, lastly, let's talk about one more little thing we can do in G. So this one starts up at the high string, and we're going to play a bunch of notes on the first string back and forth, a bunch of, in this case, 17th frets. Then we're going to go back down to our same position. So you can do. There's a bunch of licks that work out of that position of varying degrees of time. So I'll show you two ways you can do it. I like using my thumb and middle up on the first string. To me, that's what feels the easiest. Probably some hardcore Scruggs traditionalists would probably say use your index and middle. You get a little bit more consistent sound because you're using two metal picks. I don't know, that's harder for me. I've been used to doing it with my thumb and middle, and I don't notice a huge difference, so I think it works for me. So that's a good one to practice. You can just practice the right hand. And then you slide back down into our home bass position. So this one, you're jumping all the way back down to the 12th fret, at least in the lick I was just playing. And then your pinky takes over on the 14th fret of the first string. Then you go back into that little hammer-on lick. Then you slide back down to your home bass G. So a lot of the licks, remember, are kind of starting up high somewhere, and then we're always ending back down at our home bass G. So that's good practice, practice getting back down there. And then you can, that's a good spot too to do an open lick, or and get yourself back down, so you can do. So you got some open strings there you can use. So that's the last thing I'd practice is getting used to snapping back down to your home bass down low and doing something like that. Okay? So hopefully that gives you some stuff to work on. Again, think of it as positions rather than individual licks. Okay, and so lastly, some songs to listen to. I would check out the Bluegrass Album Band CDs. J.D. Croto, some incredible backup on that stuff. Some ones that stick out that really have a lot of this stuff is Down the Road is a really good one to work on up the neck backup. Another one called Gonna Settle Down is a really good one. It's a slower song, but it uses tons of up the neck stuff in his backup, especially in I think it's the second verse. Check out the second verse of Gonna Settle Down. Molly and Ten Brooks is a really good one off those albums. That's faster, that he uses some of these same licks. There's a whole bunch of them. So think of them as positions, and you'll start to hear these licks, and then do a lot of experimenting. And again, always think in terms of licks, in terms of how much time you're filling, not necessarily what notes you're playing. That'll help you use licks in other situations, because you can start, okay, this is a 1-measure lick or a 2-measure lick, and you can start substituting them easier if you know the amount of time they fill. All right, so hopefully that helped you out a little bit. Good luck.